Hi everyone, it's Margaret Manning here with Retire Different. Retire Different is a place for people who want to ask the right questions to make the best decisions for a fabulous retirement. And we invite guests to come on board to talk to us about topics that are of interest to this community. And I've got two amazing people here today to share with us their thoughts on some very important topics. Now, Pam Kruger is an investing and financial expert. She's an author and television personality, a co-host of PBS Money Track, and also the founder and creator of Wealth Ramp, which is a tool, an online tool where you can match yourself as a consumer to a fiduciary advisor. And also with me is Beth Grulich. Now, Beth is a financial advisor at Abacus Wealth Partners, that's in California, and they are basically a fiduciary. They have fiduciary standards as their foundation. And Beth is one of these people who's just passionate about educating and empowering her clients. And I'm just so happy to have you here, Beth. Welcome.
Thank you. It's great to be here, Margaret.
Well, Beth, this is your first time on here with us, but Pam is an old friend, and not old friend, a friend. And what do you know? A good friend.
I'm getting older by the minute.
Me too, every second. But we have talked before about financial issues, financial advising. And one of the topics that has come up that I'd like to now bring back to the table with you and Beth is the kinds of things that a person should be thinking about if you're in a relationship, partner or husband or, married or wife, and you are now about to make that decision to retire. And what kinds of questions you should be considering as a couple, before you start making those final, decisions. What do you think? Beth, let's start with you.
So there are a lot. There's financial as well as emotional.
Yes.
Many of my clients, they've had a date in mind, and that date comes and they haven't discussed some of the really difficult issues. Like, financial, the easy financial questions are healthcare. If you're not Medicare age yet, then healthcare is extraordinarily expensive. We're seeing about $1,200 per person per month, at least in California, in order to be covered. So it's just something you need to make sure you have adequate assets for. And then there's also can you wait to take Social Security? It's very important to wait till 70 if at all possible. Mm-hmm. And then there's the sometimes more important emotional issues. How will you feel your day? How will you be with one another? That sort of thing. It's absolutely imperative that you talk about these things before you go in and say, I'm done with work.
Well, I totally agree with you. From the feedback I've had from our community and my own experience, that is absolutely the case, is that, you really, have to have a kind of a coming to two minds. And sometimes one thing I was going to comment, and Pam, I'd like you to give feedback on this, is a lot of men in our community have given feedback of, this is the time I want to relax. I want to just take it easy in retirement. And the women are saying things like, I want to go on that river cruise to Budapest, or I want to do, they've got a checklist of to-dos. And that in itself, that lifestyle difference. What do you think about that?
Yeah, active, adventurous travel versus, sitting at home. So, it's funny, it's kind of opposites attract sometimes, as we all know, with couples. So there's a few things about having this conversation way before retirement, kind of leading up to it, not waiting.
Right.
Because the guy you married or the woman you married or the partner you're with, when you got together, if you were opposite then, you probably have been opposite all along in terms of your habits of spending and that kind of thing. So I think you have to really agree on, three key things. You got to agree on what spending is going to look like to make your savings last, so that you have an agreement before it happens, and basically agreeing on how you're going to invest money together in retirement, because things are different now. And, timing issues like Beth just brought up, when to take Social Security, you guys have to we all have to agree on those things together to make it really, really work as a unit. And then the last one is agreeing on things like, what happens if? What if we need to go to assisted living? What happens if we need to move to a smaller house?
Yeah.
These discussions, so I think they all have to happen like way before retirement, ideally.
So this is the kind of, and that's really very useful, but this is the kind of conversation that probably people would think you'd have with a counselor, not a financial advisor or a fiduciary advisor. You'd think, oh, well, I'll chat with my church, or I'd go to some friends. and get some guidance on this. Why do you think it's a good idea to, to take advantage of a financial advisor, Beth, in sorting out these things you've got to come together on?
Well, it's extremely important. And Pam, you made a great point about the changing into your spending habits. So what I find is all of my clients, regardless of their net worth, find that transition from saving into spending very difficult. So you've been building this pie. It grows and grows. You're saving. You've done a beautiful job of automated saving and investing into your retirement, your non-retirement accounts. And then the goal is for them to shrink. And people have a hard time with that. But that's the dream and the goal. You build it up so that you spend it. And I often find couples, if they're not on the same page and they haven't discussed it beforehand, having a lot of angst over how quickly the pie can and should shrink. And is it okay to go on that dream vacation because, oh my gosh, it's a lot of money and we're not bringing in money anymore. So it's just important to keep that dialogue open before the actual day.
It's really interesting too, because communication isn't always a strength in a happy married relationship. If the husband's been working very busy and the wife has been either working very busy, raising children, maybe looking after grandkids, they may have a really good marriage, but they're not used to talking to each other. Do you know what I mean?
We've definitely heard this. We've all heard this. I have friends, my girlfriends, who will say, "Oh my God, I can't get him out of the kitchen. Yes, what am I going to do?" Okay, so again, these things don't sound like they're talking about financial considerations, but when you're not having the conversations about how you're going to live and how you're going to spend, because now you're spending, and how you're going to live to spend that money, and what if scenarios and all that kind of stuff. And so, Beth, don't you think that it's a good idea, like maybe just to even start to introduce these ideas of, have you ever thought about what would happen if one of us had to go to assisted living? And you have that conversation before it happens, right?
Always. I totally agree. We hope that we don't have to deal with the worst, but I always like to anticipate worst case scenario. What if? The other thing we haven't discussed yet is how do you keep vibrant physically and mentally? It's so important the older we get, and you have to have a plan. It doesn't happen automatically. The older we are, I can speak from experience, the more we have to work at staying in shape, both mentally and physically.
Yeah. Well, that gets back to that question about lifestyle, doesn't it? That when you are approaching retirement, or that whole idea of retirement, just to sit down with each other and say, what really are you looking forward to, when you don't have to go into that job day and night? And if what your husband or your wife says is, sit on the beach or relax or play golf, that's the archetypical, that stereotype, isn't it? But you're in your mind thinking, gosh, I was just looking forward to traveling, that you might want to just, I don't know how you do that though, without sort of hurting each other's feelings, or because men, I think sometimes I'm just generalizing here from conversations, but I hear the little voices saying, I'm having a hard time here, and my wife's got a big support system. I'm just, I'm lost without a job. I don't know what to do with myself. And there's psychological challenges. What do you think, Pam? Is that your experience?
I really believe that the money is all part of this, which is why we're having this discussion. So that if you want to be the one to be proactive and bring up the subject, and you do it in the context and frame it as a money discussion, then the rest of it can be discussed, in the context of how do you see us spending every month, or how do you see us conserving our savings? Do you see us moving to a smaller place? So that and I don't know, maybe it's just me, call me crazy, but I do think that sometimes men have, I'm using this as, assuming we're women and you're dealing with a husband who's male. Men can sometimes, I think, do better with these conversations if they're not abstract and they're framed as the construct is around, hey, I was thinking about it in terms of our savings. And, if we were to spend X per month and live in such a way versus, hey, you know what? I see myself, really doing a lot of adventure travel and hiking and stuff like that. That kind of comes out of nowhere. So I think if you frame it, the money discussion, it becomes a lifestyle discussion, and then it's it's more comfortable to talk about the financial aspect.
So Beth, you work with clients all the time. This is your job. You sit down with people across the desk from you. Can you share with us a conversation that you've had with a couple that highlighted some of the issues that we're talking about here?
Absolutely. So they come in and I ask them about their dreams. They take turns, what does life look like and what is really important to you? And then we work backwards. I can tell you that if there's a line item in your budget. So if I sit down and I say, okay, I'm going to expect that you both live to 100, and they'll say yes, or maybe now and then they'll say, no, I think I might live to 110. I'm like, okay, because we don't want you to run out of your money. That we want to make sure there's plenty of money to take you through whatever age you think you might live until. So let's say we go out to age 100. So we figure out that they can afford X dollars per year in travel. And once it's in the line item of the budget, then it feels good. And when it's not budgeted, it doesn't feel good. And so we sit down and we say, what are your dreams? And then we go back and forth. And then we figure out what the budget can withstand. And then it happens. But you need to dream it first. And we need to make sure the plan's successful. And then we live life happily ever after. I always say we don't get a do-over. So it's really important that you put a plan in place so you live the life that you want to live. No second chance.
I love this conversation just for one reason, is that I've never in my life used the word dream and financial advising the same. It's so refreshing. It's so refreshing. But I wanted to ask you, Pam, you mentioned earlier when we're talking about framing things in terms of money in the conversation, do you think it's a good idea to kind of split the responsibility? So like the man of the house who maybe have done most of the investing and working with a financial advisor, that couples come to an agreement like, honey, you deal with that part of it and I'll deal with the budget, the monthly budget, for example, and how we're going to spend X amount. And what do you think?
What I find is that everybody's individually different. The dynamic between myself and my significant other is going to be totally different from someone else's. But yeah, I mean, when it comes to talking about things like what if scenarios, like, health, medical, and what if, and how would we deal with these things? Yeah. And, the all important idea of, what if one dies before the other and the other is left having to make all the investment decisions? Sure. If you're very fortunate and you have an advisor like Beth, who's actually a planning advisor, you're going to get a lot of support in learning. But it's ideally when you do retire, if the one who has been left behind in the investing conversation can begin to get a little bit more proactive, and the one who's been kind of responsible for those investing decisions can go make a point of involving the other spouse, because you've got to realize that one is going to pass and the other one is going to have to get stuck with all those decisions.
No, that's a really good point. I think that it's sometimes just, at the end of the day, somebody may take the weight of, the making the final choices and decisions, but the more informed you are together, the more powerful your unity is.
Collaborative.
Yeah, that's a really amazing concept. So we've talked about, so there's the what if scenarios that you mentioned, which is the what if you have to go into long-term care, or what if there's a problem in the family? What if somebody gets sick, or your grandchild needs medical help, or you want to contribute to a volunteer group that you feel for the goodness of the earth or whatever. So there's the what ifs. There's the timing of Social Security. And then there's the things like type of lifestyle and health care. I want to circle back on the Social Security because we mentioned that briefly. Could you, Beth, tell us again what the guidance would be that you would give someone, one of our community, to give the advice?
Definitely. So anyone who's born after the year of 1937, their full retirement age is over 65, and it ramps up to 67. So most of us have an age 67 that's full retirement age, but that's not the age that I want everyone to put in their minds. The number you want is age 70, because Social Security payments grow 8% a year if you can wait until age 70. So it's really important to figure out a way to make it last, because like I said, the number one fear is that we run out of money. We always want to prepare for the worst. So we want to make sure that you are going to be vibrant until 100 or 110. Yeah. And so we want those Social Security payments to be as large as they possibly can.
This is such an interesting conversation, because I will be honest with you here. I actually started taking Social Security too early. I took it as soon as I could. And that was, in my opinion, it was a mistake, in the sense that I look back now. But at the time, I did it because of something that I think is at the heart of so many people who are retiring. And that is that we were raised as kids, our whole context of money is that when you retire, you get your Social Security. You basically, it's like you don't think that you're going to live to be 80 or 90 or 100 years old. All you know is that at some point you are going to, in quotes, retire, and you're going to claim Social Security. And
I have a couple of thoughts.
And you just do it, and that's like, it's almost like built into your psychology. So it's a human, it's a transition mentally that people have to make too. So I appreciate you outlining it. 8% is a big number.
It is.
Yeah. So Pam, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
That adds up. I'm just going to say I have a couple of thoughts on that.
Yeah.
First of all, I think that everybody is rightly counseled to wait longer, because we're not going to die when we're probably, God willing, we're not going to die when we're 72 years old. So waiting just makes a lot more sense, because obviously it would be the equivalent of you taking the money and putting it into an investment and earning 8%.
I know, it's crazy.
And getting it risk-free, right? Guaranteed 8% a year. Where are you going to get that? At the bank? No, that pays 2%.
Yeah.
But you can always remember that you can pull that lever, should you need to. And I think that we don't want to tell people who feel like, oh, I'm not supposed to take it at 62. There are people who need to take it at 62, people who need it to make ends meet. Plain and simple. If you can afford, because you can work part-time and you can put it off, cool. If you need it to make ends meet, by all means, it's there. Yeah. Beth, do you agree with that?
100%. The goal is to do whatever you need to do for mental and physical health. And so there's no one-size-fits-all answer, but in general, if you can afford to wait or figure out a way to afford to wait, it's better.
Yeah. You know what's shocking is age 62. If you take a typical person who has a $1,450 a month benefit, right? If they take it at 62, they get $1,450. They take it at 67, then the benefit becomes $2,100 a month.
I know.
If they wait until age 70, it's $2,800 a month, which is almost double what you would have had in that first 62. So that shows you the power of waiting. If you're healthy, you feel you're healthy, if you feel you're going to have a long life, then you can see how powerful that extra paycheck is.
Yeah. No, I'm actually amazed. I mean, we should put this number down. We will put it in the article and the accompanies the video, because I don't think people actually. I didn't realize that. I honestly did not know that. I just decided that there was something about that point of retire, and I didn't actually end up retiring. That's the funny part about it, is that I took the Social Security early, thinking that would be the time I'd move to Europe and I'd, settle near my family, and I would blah, blah, blah. And it turned out I ended up working full time for 2 years. I ended up, starting a business, and it's just, you just have to keep double guessing or triple guessing yourself all the time.
We should check with Beth on one thing on something. You just brought up a good point. So Beth, I'm pretty sure that it's hard to undo it. Like once you take it to 62.
Well, could I have undone it?
No, I didn't. And put it back. It doesn't work like that.
No,
it doesn't, unfortunately. And you receive poor guidance. I mean, someone at Social Security should have said, here are the pros and cons. That's all we can do as planners. We can't tell you what to do, but we can educate you so that you know the ramifications of choosing A, B, or C.
Well, that's why there are people like you around and Pam around. I mean, you're more visible now, and thank goodness that there's more social media and in the online that you can get this information more accessibly. But aging is like so profound and so many levels, and you do things in your early 60s that are just so what's the word? They're not grounded in knowledge or wisdom. They're kind of you're just grappling then to. How are you going to cope with, this new life, no job, maybe it
just seems like
family.
It kind of seems and feels like the people we're really talking to about the weight question on the Social Security, the people we're really addressing are the people who could be waiting and they make the mistake of not. Mm-hmm. So that's what we're trying to catch here, is the person who says, why not just take it? It's there, I might as well, because they haven't thought it through. And I think that's really important, because you're in your early 60s and you're making that decision. And, it's just, if you can, just stop and wait and take it, talk to an advisor about it. And really, it's not about like, eat your peas and carrots. Don't take your Social Security. You're bad, naughty. It's just smart It's just smart.
Well, that's just one of the topics that you want to be discussing with a partner or your husband or wife going into retirement. And that's a very important one, though. And I liked how you earlier on said, Pam, about framing all the conversations around lifestyle and healthcare and what ifs around the financial aspect, like combining your human needs with the financial needs that you have together as a couple. Yeah. Yeah. Well, I've really found this useful. Is there anything, Beth, that you would want to close on if you were sitting with someone right now, just they were undecided about how to approach their partner in this conversation? How important is it?
It's just really never too early to start talking about it, because different people have so many different imaginings of what it will look like. And so you need to talk about it, and it all can work. Maybe it means you need to find more girlfriends so that you can go live the life you want to live because he wants to be on the golf course. That's fine.
I thought you were going to say for him to find more girrlfriends. I thought, well, I guess
there's no one size fits all, but I would never recommend that. It's not
of course.
Wise.
You didn't hear that from me.
Well, I mean, anything's possible these days. I mean, there's like, what is retiring different if it's not, opening your heart and mind to all possibilities? No, that's great advice. Pam, how about you? You're the guru of good advice.
No, I have to just echo what Beth just said. Is just everybody, it's like the conversation just feels awkward because we separate money from life. Life is money, money is life. Let's get used to it. So
totally
talking about it. And everybody I know who's a successful couple in their 70s and pretty well retired, I want to say, not necessarily that they're wealthy, but they're happy. They came to an agreement. They bargained with each other. They figured it out.
And that magic word, compromise. They learned how to compromise with each other. And that's the beauty of it all. Okay, well, this has been a wonderful conversation. I've really enjoyed this, actually. This is wonderful to have people who know what they're talking about, kind of counterpoint my own personal experience, and also just the mistakes that people in our community are potentially going to make without your expert guidance. So thank you so much, Beth.
Thank you, Margaret.
Thanks, Pam. If you enjoyed this video, please subscribe to our Retire Different YouTube channel and check out our website at retiredifferent.com. We are a community of people who are asking questions and trying to make good financial decisions so that we can have an amazing retirement. We'll be looking at our relationship to money and also places that we can go for support, advice, and inspiration.